FDA's antibiotic changes. What pork producers need to know. On January 1, 2017, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration's new regulation addressing on-farm antibiotic use in food animal production will take effect. This presentation was created to inform pork producers of the Food and Drug Administration's upcoming antibiotic changes by addressing what pork producers need to know to prepare for the antibiotic changes. Even though this presentation was aimed at pork producers, please note these antibiotic changes will affect all livestock species, including youth livestock projects. To start off, I would like to give you a little background of the antibiotic changes. With these changes, there are two main purposes FDA aims to address. First, to eliminate the use of medically important to human illness antibiotics for growth promotion purposes in food animal production. Secondly, to bring therapeutic use of antibiotics in feed and water under additional veterinary oversight. Therapeutic use includes using antibiotics to treat, control, or prevent specific diseases. These new requirements will affect producers, veterinarians, feed mills, and suppliers. Producers include all livestock producers including 4-H, FFA, and other youth raising livestock. In the previous slide, I mentioned antibiotics considered medically important to human illness will be affected by the new antibiotic requirements. A question you may be asking, what does medically important really mean? Well, an antibiotic is considered medically important if it is used, or antibiotics in the same family of medication is used in human medicine or animal medicine. Before I get too far into this presentation, I think it is important to go over some definitions, because you will see these acronyms used several times in this presentation. VFD stands for Veterinary Feed Directive, which is a veterinary order for feeding medically important antibiotics in animal feeds. VCPR stands for Veterinary Client Patient Relationship. This refers to an established relationship between a livestock producer and their veterinarian, who oversees the animal health for their farm. FDA stands for Food and Drug Administration, while CVM stands for Center for Veterinary Medicine. Together, these two entities regulate all approvals of antibiotic usage. OTC stands for over-the-counter, which refers to purchasing antibiotics without a prescription. And lastly, RX stands for a prescription, which refers to the purchase and use of an antibiotic from a veterinarian. Now back to defining FDA's antibiotic changes. In 2010, FDA released Guidance 209, and in 2013 released Guidance 213, with the final VFD rule released June 3rd of 2015, outlining the new antibiotic regulations, which are defined as, first, limiting medically important antibiotics to therapeutic purposes of treatment, control, and prevention. And secondly, non-therapeutic uses of medically important antibiotics are no longer permitted. This means antibiotics will no longer be labeled for growth promotion or improved feed conversion. All antibiotic labels indicate the use of the antibiotic. Prior to Guidance 213, antibiotics could be labeled for use to treat, control, prevention of disease, and aid in growth promotion. The definitions of these label indications are defined on this slide. Well, Guidance 213 requested animal health companies to outline intentions to voluntarily remove any production and growth promotion uses from the product labels of medically important antibiotics. Pork producers should be noticing these changes on antibiotic labels of medically important antibiotics. By January 1, 2017, all labels need to be changed to reflect FDA's antibiotic changes. Because of this, make sure you check labels of products you use to make sure you are using these products according to their updated label directions. Guidance 209 and 213 also defines that veterinary oversight will increase for the remaining therapeutic applications of treatment, control, and disease prevention. This applies to both in-feed and water-delivered antibiotics. This means that over-the-counter usage of medically important antibiotics used in mass medication of feed and water delivery will be eliminated. With this rule, medically important antibiotics used in feed or water will no longer be able to be purchased without a VFD or a prescription from a licensed veterinarian. With that said, medically important in-feed and water-delivered antibiotics will be changing their marketing status. Products delivered through the water will change from over-the-counter to prescription medications, while antibiotics delivered in or on the feed will change to veterinary feed directives. For now, these changes do not apply to injectable antibiotics. While a majority of feed and water medications are affected, there are some that are not. For swine, there are currently antibiotics that already fall into the category of veterinary feed directives or prescription for water-delivered medication. These antibiotics will remain as VFD or prescription. Antibiotics that are not considered medically important are not affected, and they include the products with active medication ingredients of bacitracin, bamamycin, carbadox, tiamylin, and ionophores. Other medications that are not antibiotics and also not infected include our dewormer products and our beta agonists, which are Paline and Engain. You may be wondering, what is a VFD exactly? Well, a veterinary feed directive is technically not a prescription, but is very similar to one due to the fact it is a written statement issued by a licensed veterinarian authorizing the use of a VFD medication in an animal feed. The veterinarian is responsible for filling out a VFD form correctly and sending a copy to the producer and distributor, which in most cases is the feed mill. It is important to note that all parties must retain copies of the VFD records for 2 years. With the antibiotic changes, producers, veterinarians, feed mills, and suppliers will all face new requirements. Producers' responsibilities include that any animal feed containing a VFD medication can only be fed with a valid VFD issued by a licensed veterinarian. This includes any medicated feed inventory that was purchased prior to January 1, 2017, that the producer may have on hand or in the feed bins. For example, if a producer purchases, let's say, Tylenol 40 medication in November of 2016 and has some left to feed come January 1, 2017, starting January 1, 2017, the producer will need a VFD to legally feed the medicated feed to the pigs. This will require a veterinary client-patient relationship, which I will discuss in the following slides. Another responsibility of the producer is any VFD feed cannot be fed after an issued VFD has expired. Again, I would like to emphasize the VFD and records of the related feed distribution must be kept for 2 years. Producer responsibilities also applies to any youth swine projects. In the previous slide, I mentioned a veterinary client-patient relationship. This is commonly referred to a VCPR. This may be defined by each state, or states can follow the federal requirements. Federal minimum requirements state that a veterinarian has engaged with a producer to assume responsibility for making clinical judgments about animals' health. It also states that a veterinarian has sufficient knowledge of the patient, which in this case is the pig, by examination of the pig or visits to the facility where the pig is managed, or both. The veterinarian is available to provide any needed follow-up, evaluation, or care. It's important to note that Minnesota's VCPR requirements align with the federal requirements that I just stated. For the veterinarian, their responsibilities include the following: be licensed and operating in course of normal practice in compliance with all state and federal regulations. Write VFD orders in context of the veterinary client-patient relationship. Only use a VFD in compliance with approved use. It's important to note, no extra label use is allowed with VFDs. It is also a responsibility of a veterinarian to prepare written VFD, including the veterinarian's signature. VFDs may be submitted electronically, such as via email or fax. Ensure VFD includes all required information, and include medication-specific information for each VFD medication when authorizing medication combinations that include more than one VFD medication. Additional veterinarian responsibilities include, when issuing a VFD combining VFD and over-the-counter medications, include on the VFD order an affirmation of intent either to restrict authorized use only to the VFD medications cited on the VFD form or to allow the use of the cited VFD medication in approved combination with one or more over-the-counter medications. Veterinarians must provide the distributor, which in most cases is the feed mill, and client with a copy of the VFD order, either in hard copy or electronic form, or by fax. The original VFD must be retained for 2 years. And the VFD orders must be available and provided for inspection and copying by FDA upon request. Before I cover responsibilities of a distributor, I think it's important to define what a distributor is in relation to VFD feed. A distributor is any person who distributes a medicated feed containing a VFD medication to another person. Another person may be another distributor or the client recipient of the VFD feed. There are 2 kinds of distributors, one that only distributes VFD feed, and another that manufactures and distributes VFD feed. No matter if a distributor only distributes VFD feed or manufactures and distributes it, they must notify FDA by filing a one-time notice to FDA of intention to distribute VFD medications. If the distributor changes ownership, business name, or business address, they need to contact FDA within 30 days of doing so. Other responsibilities of the distributor is that they can only fill a VFD order only if the VFD form contains all the required needed information. Another responsibility is that a distributor must ensure that the animal feed containing VFD medication is compliant with terms of the VFD and manufactured and labeled in conformity with approved uses. For those that fall into the category of distributor, the one-time notification needed to FDA needs to include the distributor's complete name and business address, the distributor's signature or the signature of the distributor's authorized agent, and the date the notification was signed. Notification should be sent to the address I have provided, or it can be faxed to the number provided. Additional distributor responsibilities include ensure all labeling and advertising displays the cautionary statement. Caution: federal law restricts medicated feed containing this veterinary feed directive medication to use by or on the order of a licensed veterinarian. The distributors is also to retain VFD orders for 2 years from date of issuance, and must retain records of the receipt and distribution of all medicated animal feed containing a VFD medication for 2 years. Additionally, distributors must provide VFD orders for inspection and copying by FDA upon request. Additional distributor responsibilities include records of VFD manufacturing must be retained for 1 year in accordance with rules and regulations, and make records available for inspection and copying by FDA upon request. They must obtain an acknowledgement letter from the receiving distributor before feed is shipped, and retain copy of consignee distributor's acknowledgement letter for 2 years. For producers that mix their own feed on farm, they will not need to register as a distributor if mixing feed for themselves and it is fed to their pigs in barns they own. If a producer mixes feed to be given or sold to a neighbor or contract grower, then the producer will need to register as a distributor. Registering as a distributor is needed even if you mix feed for pigs you own in a contract barn on another site that is not owned by the producer who is mixing it. I would like to end with a take-home message to help pork producers prepare for FDA's antibiotic changes. The Pork Checkoff has created the acronym USCARE as an easy way to remember the 6 key steps producers need to complete before January 2017 to ensure successful compliance with FDA's new regulations for on-farm use of medically important antibiotics. U stands for Understand. Come January 1, 2017, only therapeutic use, which is treatment, control, and prevention, for specific animal health condition will be allowed only under direction of a veterinarian. S stands for Strengthen, your veterinary client-patient relationship. C stands for Communicate with your feed mill. Ensure the mill personnel understand and are prepared to implement the new VFD record-keeping procedures. A stands for Assess your herd health and welfare strategies. R stands for Renew your commitment to responsible antibiotic use. Stay up to date with pork quality assurance. And lastly, E, ensure your record-keeping compliance. Remember, records for VFD must be kept for 2 years, and records for prescription medications must be kept for 1 year. There are still many unanswered questions that FDA needs to address on exact implementation of the antibiotic changes. It is our intentions to share those updates as they become available. Check back closer to January 2017 for any updates on implementation of the Food and Drug Administration's antibiotic changes. I also invite you to check out the University of Minnesota Swine Extension webpage at www.extension.umn.edu/swine to find other fact sheets related to this topic. I hope now, after listening to this presentation, you are better informed and understand FDA's antibiotic changes that will be coming into effect on January 1, 2017. If you are someone that falls into the distributor category or a veterinarian looking for more information, I encourage you to visit the Food and Drug Administration's website. I have shared a shortened link that will bring you directly to the webpage that contains links to all the updated information on the antibiotic changes. I would also like to mention that National Pork Board also has a page on their website where they have linked to FDA's website as well as provided swine-specific fact sheets on the antibiotic changes.